Right. Let's dive into Braveheart. I think we all remember Mel Gibson, blue face paint, epic battles, freedom.
Yeah, definitely a classic.
But how much of it is actually true?
Right.
We're going to find out. We've got some sources here that break down the history, the Catholic perspective, kind of where those two things meet.
Yeah, Braveheart is one of those movies, right?
At least
it's got the spirit of freedom, resistance, themes that I think really resonate with us as Catholics.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it takes some liberties with the history, you know?
It does, yeah.
And we look at like what actually happened and
Right.
who these people really were,
Right.
especially through that Catholic lens.
Yeah.
The story gets a lot more interesting, a lot more complex.
Way more complex, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going through the sources, and I was actually shocked by some of the historical inaccuracies.
Yeah.
Like prima nocta, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
English lords getting first night with Scottish brides.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not just historically questionable.
Mm-hmm.
It goes completely against what the church teaches about marriage.
Yeah. It's a great example of Braveheart using, manipulating history, basically,
Right.
to tell a very specific story. I mean, in reality, there's just no evidence for prima nocta, especially not in medieval Scotland.
Right.
Like, it's made up. It's made up to make the English look bad,
Right.
fuel that Scottish anger. But, we see marriage as sacred.
Of course.
It's a covenant.
Right.
It's ordained by God.
Yeah.
The idea that any king or lord could just violate that, it's just, it's abhorrent.
Makes you wonder what else we just accept from the movie without really thinking.
Right.
Like William Wallace himself.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie, he's this humble farmer turned freedom fighter.
Right.
But the sources, they paint a different picture.
Yeah, the real Wallace, he was probably lower nobility.
Okay.
Not a peasant.
Okay.
He probably had some education.
Interesting.
And he definitely had some military training
Okay.
before all this Braveheart stuff happened.
So not just some random guy who picked up a sword.
No, not at all.
I mean, but that fight for freedom, I mean, that's still powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for us as Catholics, I think.
Absolutely.
I mean, that desire for freedom, it's deep in our faith.
Absolutely. It is.
But, okay, so Wallace's background, maybe not so accurate.
Right.
What about that Battle of Stirling Bridge?
Yeah.
I mean, kilts, the yelling,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that didn't actually happen. But
You gotta be a little skeptical there.
Yeah.
Stirling Bridge, huge moment in Scotland, but the movies version, it's more Hollywood than history.
Gotcha.
I mean, the whole kilt thing, totally made up.
Yeah.
The battle itself, I mean, it was a lot different in reality. They used the bridge strategically. It was a clever move.
Okay. And Wallace and Princess Isabella.
Yeah.
The romance, the Hollywood invention, right?
Totally. Isabella was a kid at the time.
Oh, wow.
She married Edward II much later, after Wallace was already dead.
Okay.
It's just, it's a fictional storyline.
Okay.
Just to add that emotional element.
All right. So Braveheart, we're seeing it with a more critical eye now.
Right.
Seeing where they stretch the truth.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there are themes that really resonate with us. Like the fight for freedom. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
And that really connects with our understanding of human dignity.
Of course.
Resisting oppression.
Absolutely.
That's powerful stuff.
Yeah. The desire for freedom to live according to your conscience.
Yeah.
According to God's will.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fundamental part of being Catholic.
Absolutely.
But Braveheart, it portrays freedom as very individualistic. It's all about Wallace and his fight.
Right.
We see freedom as more than just breaking free from earthly chains.
Yeah.
It's about being free from sin.
Okay.
It's about living a life rooted in Christ.
Right. And then there's Wallace's use of violence.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a warrior.
Right.
He's driven by revenge, especially after Muran.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that a bit. I mean, how do we reconcile that with peace, forgiveness?
Yeah. It's a Braveheart really presents a moral dilemma there. I mean, self-defense, the idea of a just war, that's recognized in Catholic teaching.
Right.
But there are rules.
Right.
There are principles. The catechism, it lays out the conditions for a just war,
right,
a just cause, the right intention, avoiding unnecessary violence.
Right.
And it's a question we got to ask.
Yeah.
Do Wallace's actions, do they actually fit those criteria?
Right.
Or did revenge,
understandable as it might be, lead him to cross a line?
It makes you think. And then there's Wallace's marriage to Murrin.
Oh, yeah.
That secret ceremony.
Right.
Later, they used that to justify the rebellion.
Right.
But was that even a valid marriage?
It's a great question. And it gets into how marriage rights have evolved in the church.
Okay.
So back in the 13th century, clandestine marriages.
Okay.
Marriages without a public ceremony.
Okay.
They were valid.
Okay.
But they were strongly discouraged.
Okay.
We've got the decretals of Pope Gregory IX.
Yeah.
And the Fourth Lateran Council. They both address these types of marriages.
Okay.
Recognizing them, they're sacramentally binding.
Okay.
But they also pointed out the problems.
So valid, but not ideal.
Right.
Why is that?
I mean, imagine trying to prove a clandestine marriage, especially for the woman.
Right.
If there are no witnesses, no records, it creates some problems.
Right.
And it opened the door for situations like bigamy.
Oh, okay.
Someone could accidentally end up in multiple marriages.
Wow.
So to prevent that, the church really started emphasizing public ceremonies.
Okay.
And eventually having a priest as an official witness.
Makes sense. Practical. And it protects people.
Exactly.
But going back to Wallace, one thing that really struck me is that the movie doesn't really talk about his faith.
Right.
Was he even Catholic?
I mean, historically, it's very likely. I mean, most Scots at the time were.
Yeah.
But the film, it doesn't really go there.
It doesn't.
But it's an interesting thought, right?
Yeah.
Like, how would his faith have shaped, his leadership?
Right.
The choices he made?
Yeah.
Would he have asked the church to bless his rebellion?
I don't know.
How did he reconcile his violence with what he understood about Catholic teaching? So many questions the film doesn't really answer.
Yeah.
It's like we kind of project our own ideas onto these historical figures.
It is.
Fill in the gaps.
We do.
But looking at it through our Catholic faith, it gives us a new understanding.
It does.
Maybe even more interesting.
Yeah, that's the beauty of examining history through the lens of faith.
It makes us look deeper.
It does.
Think about the moral gray areas.
Absolutely.
And see how God might be working.
Yeah.
Even in those messy times.
Exactly.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Braveheart. We were just talking about some of the historical inaccuracies.
Right.
Thinking about it through the Catholic lens.
Yeah, these deep dive, I mean, they really get you thinking, right?
Yeah.
About how we see things. And Braveheart, I mean, it's got so much to unpack.
I'm really struck by how the movie portrays war.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those battle scenes.
So intense.
So visceral. It's crazy. How much of that is just Hollywood?
Right.
And how much is real?
Well, the movie, it definitely romanticizes things a lot. Take the Scottish warriors, charging into battle.
Yep.
Barely any armor.
Yeah, with their blue faces.
Right. I mean, it looks awesome.
Yeah, it does.
On screen, but historically not accurate. Medieval battles were brutal.
Yeah.
You needed that protection to survive.
It's easy to get caught up in that romantic vision, right?
Yeah.
Brave warriors fighting for freedom.
Right.
Just with courage, with determination.
Yeah, but as Catholics, we recognize, the sanctity of life.
Absolutely.
And throwing yourself into danger like that,
right?
It doesn't really line up with that principle.
Yeah, it makes you think about, what it means to be a hero. What does that really mean?
Right.
And speaking of heroes, what about the English? I mean, were they really as incompetent as the movie shows?
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking about that scene before Stirling Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
That English commander says that no army has won a battle in centuries without heavy cavalry.
Yeah.
I mean, that just doesn't seem right.
That's the movie prioritizing drama over historical accuracy.
Gotcha.
I mean, the English commanders, they were smart.
Yeah.
They were experienced. They knew how to use infantry.
Right.
They knew how to adapt to different situations.
So they weren't just all about the heavy cavalry?
No, not at all.
It's just the way the movie makes it seem.
Right. It's the classic underdog story.
Yeah.
The Scots against the mighty English.
Yeah.
But the reality is much more complicated.
Right.
Both sides had their strengths.
Yeah.
Both sides had their weaknesses.
Right.
And who won, who lost. I mean, a lot of it came down to strategy, leadership, a little bit of luck even.
Right. I'm seeing a pattern here. It's all about simplifying things.
Right.
Good guys, bad guys.
Yeah.
Black and white.
Yeah. A lot of historical dramas do that. Makes a good story. But, as Catholics, we're called to look at history with a critical eye.
Absolutely.
To recognize that sin and grace are on both sides of any conflict.
It's easy to fall into that us versus them trap.
Yeah.
But we're supposed to see the humanity in everyone.
Right.
Even our enemies.
Absolutely.
Speaking of seeing things from different sides, let's talk about Robert the Bruce.
Oh, yeah.
We already know he wasn't really a traitor.
Right.
But he's a complicated guy.
He is. Robert the Bruce, I mean, he's one of the most fascinating figures in Scottish history.
Yeah.
His path to becoming king, it wasn't easy.
Right.
Full of challenges, compromises.
Okay.
Yeah, he submitted to Edward I at first.
Yeah.
But a lot of Scottish nobles were in the same boat.
Right.
They had to play the game. They had to think about their families, their lands.
So it wasn't just as simple as picking a side.
No, not at all.
English or Scottish.
It was a time of shifting alliances.
Right.
Political maneuvering. Difficult choices.
And Robert the Bruce, I mean, he came out of it a champion.
He did.
For Scottish independence.
He did. His victory at Bannockburn, 1314. I mean, that was huge.
Yeah.
Secured Scotland's freedom.
It's interesting, thinking about Robert the Bruce and faith. I mean, we all make mistakes, right? We're all tempted.
We are.
But it's how we respond.
Right.
Our commitment to God, to his will.
Yeah.
That shapes who we are.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It's like a nation,
Yeah.
The journey of faith. It's rarely straightforward.
It isn't. There's doubt. There's compromise.
Yeah.
But God's grace.
Yeah.
It sees us through, guides us to where we're supposed to be.
Speaking of where we're supposed to be, the ending of Braveheart.
Yeah.
We see Wallace executed brutal.
Right.
And then it jumps to Bannockburn.
Yeah.
Implying that Wallace's death
led
to the Scottish victory. Is that true?
The movie's definitely playing with the timeline there.
Okay.
For sure. I mean, Wallace's execution, it created a lot of anger towards the English. But Bannockburn, that was almost a decade later.
Oh, wow.
It was years of planning, strategy.
Yeah.
Robert the Bruce's leadership.
Right.
His military skills. The Scottish people, they were determined.
So the movie makes a more direct connection between Wallace and Scottish independence.
Yeah, it's a powerful story, but it's not the whole truth.
Right.
The fight for freedom, I mean, that was a long process.
Yeah.
It was full of setbacks, triumphs, compromises, sacrifices. I mean, Wallace's legacy, it inspired people.
Absolutely.
But Bannockburn, I mean, that wasn't all because of him.
Right.
So many others fought and died for Scotland.
Braveheart really does simplify things.
It does. It's more myth.
It is.
Yeah.
To some extent.
It's in history.
But even myths can have truth in them. And Braveheart, I mean, it gets things wrong.
Yeah.
But it gets something right, too. That yearning for freedom.
Yeah.
That willingness to fight for what you believe in.
Yeah.
That hope that even when things seem impossible, good can win. I mean, that resonates with us as Catholics.
It's like those stories of the saints, right?
Yeah.
I mean, miracles, amazing deeds, they might exaggerate some details.
Right.
But they point to a deeper truth.
Exactly.
About faith, about God's grace.
They remind us that even in the darkest times, God is there.
He is.
He's working through people. He's guiding things towards his plan. Welcome back to our deep dive on Braveheart. We've gone through the myths, the realities, looked at it all through our Catholic faith.
Yeah.
It's time to wrap things up, see what we've learned.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting is that even a movie like Braveheart, with its issues, with its inaccuracies, it can still make us think,
Absolutely.
Make us think about ourselves, about our faith.
Yeah. I feel like I've learned so much about Scottish history.
Right.
About leadership, about violence and justice.
Yeah.
And through it all, I mean, our Catholic faith,
Right.
it gives us a way to understand these tough questions.
Yeah. It's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
And now that we're kind of at the end of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm amazed by how much we've uncovered.
Yeah.
Beyond just the surface of the movie.
It's like peeling back the layers,
It is.
And we've challenged what we thought we knew,
Right.
busted some myths, and the story, I mean, it's more interesting now,
Yeah, it is.
more complicated
Yeah.
than what we saw on screen.
Absolutely. And we've done it all, looking through the lens of our faith,
Right.
which has been, it's been essential, right?
It has. It has. I keep thinking about William Wallace
Yeah.
and how the movie doesn't really address his faith.
Right.
It makes you wonder, what would a Catholic Braveheart look like?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah,
Yeah. It would definitely be different, wouldn't it?
it would.
More nuance. We'd see Wallace's struggles,
Right.
his internal battles, how he wrestled with the violence,
Yeah.
how he relied on prayer, on the sacraments.
And Robert the Bruce. I mean, not just this wavering, betrayer,
Right.
but someone more complex, ambitious, sure,
Mm-hmm.
but also a man of faith.
Yeah.
Someone who ultimately figures out what God wants for him,
Right.
for Scotland.
His story, that's a powerful example of redemption, right?
It is.
That even when we mess up, we can find our way back.
Yeah. It's like Braveheart, even with its issues. It still shows us these glimpses
Yeah.
of those deeper truths, that desire for freedom,
Yeah.
the fight against injustice, the importance of faith.
Absolutely.
I mean, those are things that we as Catholics, we understand.
And those themes, they're not limited to one time or place.
Right.
They're universal. They
Yeah.
speak to what it means to be human.
It's like we were watching these shadows,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
hints of something bigger, something deeper.
And through our deep dive,
Right.
we've started to see what's behind those shadows.
Yeah.
Those eternal truths that light up even the darkest parts of history.
And those truths, I mean, they can inspire us,
Yeah, they can.
in our own lives.
Yeah.
To be more courageous in our faith, to be more compassionate, to try to build a better world.
Absolutely.
It's been great exploring Braveheart this way.
Yeah, it has.
It's been more than just, picking apart a movie.
Yeah.
It's been about our faith.
It has.
It's been about what we believe.
And I hope our listeners will keep exploring, keep looking for those deeper meanings.
Yeah.
In all the stories we hear,
Right.
and always remember
Yeah.
to see the world
Yeah.
through the lens of our Catholic faith.
Well said.
Yeah.
So we say goodbye to Braveheart.
No.
The myths, the reality, the power of the story.
It's a powerful one.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring,
Yeah.
and keep those Catholic lenses on.